and welcome back to my channel, and welcome back to TN Tuesday. So this week I did get a few comments and a few questions and quite a few messages of people asking for a flip through of my very first insert, the one that I've completed, which is in my personal insert. So I will go through it. I mean, the majority of these have been documented here on my channel if you go back to the playlist. So I won't go in great detail, but I will answer a few of the questions that I got in particular regarding photos. So here was just, and the one thing I think I'm going to talk about here as well is dimension and the lesson I learned about really trying not to include chipboard. Although, as you saw last week, I did put chipboard in the travel composition notebook. Oh well, but I did put some chipboard, some wood veneer in here, and I do find this is a little bit overly chunky because there is a page here in the back that I really just won't get to. It's just going to stay the way it is. And this last page here that I really just did some journaling and just a little bit of decorating because it's a very, very chunky book. And I see here that I need to add, let me get some glue as we're talking. Oh my. And the type of glue. So I think I'll be using a little bit more double-sided tape in this because it does get handled quite a bit, and maybe a little bit more liquid glue as well. So, and so it begins. So I thought, oh my goodness me, wanted this to be a little bit of an intro to the whole book. So the title, 1957, So It Begins. Oh, this thing is falling apart. There we go. Let's get that back in there. Okay. So it begins, and this is an idea I got from Christy, from Christy's Beautiful Life. So I've got lots of journaling on here about Christmas, about where it all started. This, I'm only a few days old here, I think, with my grandmother. This is some stenciling I did. It's a lovely stencil that I got in my very first TN kit from Christina. And that's a couple of years ago now. It was probably the second kit that I got. There you go. Now you see here, I've used a wood veneer frame, and I kind of like that because I really did want to showcase this photo, but I think I will use, in the future, if I want to do some framing, I'm just going to use some cardstock or patterned paper frames because it really does add quite a bit of bulk, as do these letters, which are sort of chipboard letters. This is a little bit of a story about my grandfather, who really was a role model for life, and that is very true. Now, you see, here is a photo, and I got a couple of questions, in particular, Susan, about not having photos, and there are a lot of stories that I want to document that I do not have photos. Back in the late 50s, 60s, and probably even part of the 70s, I don't think we took as many photos as we do today. Certainly, there were no digital cameras, certainly no phone cameras. So photos were really a special occasion. So, you know, that here that I really wanted to talk about the book section of a specific store that my mom used to leave me with this lovely lady while she was shopping. I certainly would not have any pictures of that. I'm not even sure that my mom remembers much about those stories. So for that kind of thing, Google is your friend, and you can find pretty much anything and everything. Certainly all of the news stories from that, you can find photos to record all of the news stories. And then for some more specific ones, as long as you're a little bit more specific, like here, this plaza was called Parkway Plaza, on, I think it was Eglinton. I don't remember the actual street, but I did find it when I was looking for the photo, the year, and I Googled it, and I came up with these photos. Now, the specific store I'm wanting to talk about is not on this photo, but the plaza itself, there is definitely a photo, and I did find it on Google, able to print it. The quality is maybe not as great, and certainly I would not try and use these photos for, you know, if I were on a design team or anything like that. I mean, these photos are not mine, but certainly in a very personal insert that I'm just sharing with you, my friends, and my family, I have no problem using them. So Google is definitely your friend. Facebook can also be, if you are still in touch with people that have been friends or family that have been in your life for a very long time, they may have photos also that you don't have. This is a photo that my mom did have, again, recording a little bit of Christmas. And what I'm really recording here is the fact that I'm an only child, but here is a stocking for my doll. I was kind of smart. So that's really the story that I'm recording here. So I'm trying to look at this book from a very personal storytelling point of view, as opposed to photos per se. So this is really about hanging a stocking for my doll as well as my own, and then quickly going to bed, hearing Santa on the roof, and what I would leave Santa as a snack. And then, of course, a carrot for Rudolph. Then here you go again. Now this, you see, this is again something that I found on Google, in the Google Maps. The address where I used to live, which still exists today, and the school that I went to, and I was able to find on Google Maps the map and have it sort of mapped out so that I could get this in my book. Little Moments, and the actual Our Lady of Wisdom School. I could find a picture of that. And the house where I was born, which does not look like it looked back then. It's very different, but I could still find a photo. And I have it in here a little bit more, but I didn't really want to show it on camera because this is a lot more of a recent photo. So that's why it's sort of on this tag in the book with a lot of journaling in the back. So again, I would just maybe be a little bit careful about how you share, but you can pretty much find everything you're looking for on Google Maps if you do a photo research. So I hope that answered that question. I love also using for embellishing. People were asking. I love using word stickers, die cuts as they're flat, sequins, because they do not add a lot of bulk or dimension. I've not experimented much with Nuvo drops yet. Every once in a while I use tags for a little bit of interactive play and a little bit of journaling. Those are all things. And even a little bit of the puffy alphas, because as long as they are puffy, they are sort of smushy, so it doesn't add too much bulk. Then you see the other thing is I do try and get the photos at maybe different spots throughout so that you're not adding all of the bulk of the photos to the one spot. For the Love of Trains and Grandpapa, if you remember, I had put Grandpa to begin with on this, and it was really bothering me. So there you go, Christy. You see, I had to go back and change it. This again. So these are all everyday stories, but memories that I really don't want to forget. That's what I'm trying to get in here. Not maybe the biggest stories, but really those everyday memories, so that somebody who might be looking at this in a few years time, or even now, will get a sense of what life was like in the late 50s, 60s, and as I go on up until today. Documenting here my love of trains for the Love of Trains and Grandpapa, because he really would bring me along and we'd go for walks and we'd go wave at the trains going by. I'm sure people do that today, maybe with airplanes. We used to do it with trains. Birthdays, just documenting a little bit the simplicity of birthdays when I was a child, when it used to be just, you know, a lovely, quick homemade cake by my mom, a few pennies to put in my piggy bank, a few of my best friends over with a few balloons, and we used to just play very, very, very simple times. And I used some lovely product here that I won and that I got from my friend Kelsey May Webster. So I got that on here. Again, you see, chipboard frame, chipboard here, and this is chipboard. Yeah, so this, one thing I would say, if you're going to use a little bit of chipboard here and there, really only use it on one side, certainly not on two sides of a spread. First recital, this was a fun page where here I just got to use up a bunch of scraps. That is the other question I got a lot about what kind of supplies and what am I using? Am I cutting into full-size sheets? What am I using for the Traveler's Notebook? And the quick answer to that is scraps. TN inserts are awesome for using up your scraps, as you can see on this page, using up 6x6 and using all those bits and pieces. You know, I have bowls on my desk that have a lot of die cuts and leftover bits. TNs are fantastic for that. A few banners, lots of journaling. You can get lots of journaling into a TN, and I love that, and I've been doing that more and more. You'll see there's more and more journaling as I go along, and more and more am I using like one side of the page to get those stories down. And the things that I remember about, you know, this one was really about how as a child, I don't remember being cold in the winter and being able to play outside. Although this is a photo of the car, the story I'm recording here is being allowed to sit in my dad's car and pretend I was driving and going on all sorts of road trips. Then this is the sort of last page for this. And here we go again, of two photos that I found on Google. Now, at about 8 or 9 years old, we moved from the house to an apartment building. And although I know the road it was on York Mills Road, I don't remember the address, but I do remember the address of St. Madeleine's School. And I do remember that it was really just kitty corner from there, so I could put the sort of cross corner of this street and this street, and lo and behold, find that exact apartment building, which I cropped so that really you couldn't sort of see where it is, who it is. There are no cars. I made sure that anything that could identify anything is not here. Put a little enamel dot because I actually recognized the balcony from when I was a child. And so these are photos that I found on Google. And then the very last page here, as I said, because it had become so bulky, this is the first time I played with my Vicky Boonton art crayons. Love them. I talked at length about them in one of my Freeze Fridays just a couple of weeks ago, and the journaling. So there you go. There is a quick flip through this. I hope I've answered your questions. If I missed any of your questions, or if this brought any more questions, please don't hesitate to pop them down below, and I will be back next week. I think we'll be playing in the culture. I want to document a couple of books and maybe a song, a Frank Sinatra song, Fly Me to the Moon, which for some reason just popped into my head recently, and I've got to get that documented. So I think maybe that's what we'll do next week. Please leave me any comments you have, any further questions. Thank you so much for joining me on this ride. Talk to you next week. Bye. Chopin says bye.